You are listening to audio from the Decidedly podcast. This episode is a highlight clip from this week's full episode. To listen in on the complete conversation, see the show notes for the link to the complete show. You can help us out by leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate every bit of your support. I'm Morgan McKittrick, your producer, and this is Decidedly.
The thing I always think about when I'm meeting with a business owner is that we've got to have that exit plan in place, because this person's going to either die in place working, or they're going to sell their business. They're not going to retire from their business. They've got to sell that business. That, in many cases, there's their largest single asset. Many times, and it's our job to help them have a successful exit. I had somebody come in years ago that came to us late. He's like, I sold my business and need to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, this is, I wish we had, you'd come in, a few years ago. So we could do it the right way from a tax standpoint, from business continuation, getting everything set up, increase the value of that business. Maybe there's ways we could transfer shares to a charity, deduct that, pull money, out of there for your, have them buy it from the charity. There are ways that you can do this, tie revenue to bonus targets. There's all kinds of things we could have done, but he came in, I've got this big fat check. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we start mapping out, how he was going to live on the check. And there's plenty of money. It was fine. Until he started spending. Right. He didn't tell me he wanted to buy a farm. Right. And so he buys a farm and he goes, I need, X amount of money to, buy all this land. And like, okay. And we had already sort of whittled it down for tax purposes, which he hadn't considered. So it shrunk by taxes, then it shrunk by the farm. And then soon thereafter, there was $200,000 for irrigation and then on this farm. And before you know it, it's whittled down to where everything has to go right for it to work. And then the market dropped and he panicked and cashed out, right at the bottom. And it was just heartbreaking because he hadn't, all of this happened within a matter of 12 months.
So that's an individual impact on a family, right? Let's think about the financial advisor business for a moment. What happens to team members? What happens to clients? What happens to the promises that were made to clients? That's the stuff that keeps me up at night.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent, I sold our business, financial advisory business back in 2019 and started working on that probably in 2015 on, in terms of how do I get equity share systems in place? How do I tie compensation? How do I bring in other owners? How do I set up operating agreements, bonus systems, all of these types of things so that when there was a transition, it was easier to do, and then made a point of staying on, and I'm still here in a consulting capacity. But I think about it as sort of, handing off the baton, and we use that. But I ran track in high school, and I remember there's a lot more to handing off the baton. You've got, you put a mark on the track where when that runner crosses it with the baton, the other person takes off. So there's a point in time when we need, which is ahead of the handoff. Yep. And during that handoff, you get close and you say the word, that person reaches back and they grab it. There's a point where you're both holding on to it and you're both running together, but you're both holders. That split second. And then there's that last second where that business owner, that runner, lets go of that baton. But that's not where it ends either. You're encouraging them, you're yelling for them, you're cheering them on, go, 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 and you're celebrating what's happening with that runner. It doesn't, you just hand it off and turn away. You never do.
Right.
And so I think about this business transaction is that it's not just selling your business. It's a transfer of not just capital, but trust, as you said. We just had somebody come in that did a $40 million exit. last week. And it's exciting to see how that changes a family. And we began talking about what are all the things that you've always wanted to do and you haven't yet done? What are the things you regret not having done? And the wife was there and she was naming things and she stopped me and she goes, "This is what we've been needing to do for 10 years. This is really fun."
Right. So, it's funny, Sean, we have a program at ClientWise called Success in Succession.
Okay.
And it's a coaching program. And one of the first areas that we ask advisors to start thinking about is what does life look like beyond the workplace? Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating when you do start asking advisors, "Hey, what's next? What's your next ambition? What's next on your roadmap? What do you imagine achieving or accomplishing, or where's the next impact you want to have?" There's an old quote, I think it was David Foster said, "Everything I've ever let go of has claw marks on it." The advisors that hold on tightly to these businesses, right? They've got claw marks on them. And by the way, when you say that to the next generation, right, they go, "Oh yeah, he won't let go of those clients. He won't let go of those advisors. He won't," and so anyway, long story short, I think it's important to start imagining a future beyond what advisors are currently doing. Let's start imagining what that looks like. And by the way, concurrently, let's grab the next gen and let's ask them to start imagining, like, what would you do different if you were running the firm today? And what is it going to look like, when you are a controlling owner? And so when you concurrently work with controlling owners and founders, and you're also working with the next generation leaders and owners, and they're working collaboratively along a path. I think it's akin to what you're describing with that gentle handoff, where you're both running down the track and the baton hasn't gotten handed off yet. We think of success and succession as really that beautiful period of time where there is that gentle handoff that's taking place, but there's a lot of work that has to get done in order for that to occur smoothly and smartly.
To extend on that analogy, you hand off the baton, you've got to keep running for a little bit after the baton is gone. You can't just stop.
No, that
you try to stop on a dime, you're going to tear your ACL. And you got to keep jogging for a little bit. And I think I guess that's the part of the analogy that is having the personal plan after you've left. And I guess we kind of, whether or not you're a business owner, when there's a big transition. So for a business owner, it's, "Hey, I sold my business and then what do I do next?" For most people who are not a business owner, they can relate to that and say, "Well, I've retired from my job. I've retired from working. What's next?" And what we know as advisors is the people that don't have a what's next are sicker. They don't live as long. They're less happy. Yep. Everything is worse for those people because they don't have a purpose in life. And if it was so easy to pick out what was next, everyone would do it. Like when we say the idea of we've got to come up with what's next, we've got to come up with the personal plan. Nobody disagrees. And I would imagine when you talk to advisors, nobody thinks you're wrong in suggesting that. But what's missing between the people that do it and the people that don't do it?
Yeah, that's great. Most don't invest the time to do the work, to really think through it. And it's much easier to play through. In fact, there was once a time I thought we should all go long on oxygen tanks because all the advisors were going to die at their desks. But the truth of the matter is advisors deeply care about the client. So, Sanger, there's I think about it in two ways. There are the heartstrings and the purse strings. It's if you do it right, the exit value is extraordinary. I mean, we're seeing multiple expansion with all the M&A activity and what's happening in the marketplace. It's pretty extraordinary. Sean, you sold out early. I mean, you think about the multiples today compared to where they were 2 and 3 and 4 years ago, right?
Rub it in.
Thanks for rubbing that in. Right?
Sorry about that. Just hey, the facts, man. Just the facts.
Sanger's very happy about that.
I'm thrilled, man.
Right? Okay. But think about that. Yeah, but there's an exit value when you do it right. You reap the financial reward, but that's the purse strings. It's the heartstrings. Sanger, back to answer your question.
Sure.
I don't think it's so much about anything more than helping the clients think about who will care for the clients in their absence. And, Sean, I got to think the great business that you've built, you're comforted knowing who's caring for those clients and the heirs of those clients now that you're not the primary advisor. And there's something to be said, like when you really connect to the purpose-driven business, that behind every great advisor is a set of clients that have an enormous level of trust in her or him. And when you can help an advisor understand that impact should have a multi-generational effect, it makes it a lot easier for advisors to take those steps.
The biggest fear a business owner, financial advisor or business owner has when they hand off a relationship or sell their business is that their clients are going to be upset. That their clients are going to be upset with them. The second biggest fear is that the clients won't be. It's because it is an emotional separation. It's not just a financial transaction. It's, you've known these people, you see them, you talk about very important, meaningful things that they don't talk to anybody else with or about. And then you are not seeing them as often, because you don't have social connections with everybody.
Right.
But it's, there's this sense of loss. There's this grieving of these relationships.
No, that's right. Yeah.
That's natural, I think.
Thanks for making the great decision to listen in to this week's episode highlight. If you want more of what you just heard, see the show notes for the full episode. As always, for the latest decision-making tips, find us on decidedlypodcast.com or on Instagram @decidedlypodcast. And be sure to sign up for our weekly newsletter from the link in the show notes. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review as well. We read all of your comments, so if you learned some decision-making tips today, let us know. Until next time, this is Decidedly. Insights, advice, and comments provided by Sean Smith, Sanger Smith, and speakers identified as part of the Decidedly podcast should not be considered recommendations. Speakers not identified as members of Decidedly are expressing their opinion, and their statements should not be construed as reflecting the views of the Decidedly team. This podcast is produced solely for informational purposes, not personalized advice.